And we're live.
Hey everybody.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are going to be continuing Dustin's birthday picks in between our mustache matinee. So, Dustin, take it away and tell us exactly which movie is next.
Well, on this episode, we're going to be talking about something from my favorite subgenre, reptile monster horror, Komodo, which is about what happens when Komodo dragons are introduced as an invasive species on an island in, what was this, North Carolina?
Supposedly.
Supposedly, yes. So it's actually got a bit of a pedigree. So I'm looking at the DVD here, and the cover boasts from the writer of Anaconda and the special effects creator of Jurassic Park, which, as we'll get into, you can kind of tell. So similar noises, looks of the creatures, that sort of thing. So this movie is from 2000, so it's somewhat dated, although I think the monster effects hold up pretty well. So I'm just going to read the synopsis from the back of the DVD. On an island off the Florida coast... Wait a minute. What?
Wow, that just makes it even more confusing.
Yeah, because the opening crawl of the movie says this takes place in North Carolina.
And as I pointed out, all the cars have Georgia plates. And it was filmed in Australia, so it makes you think that Australia was like, Eastern US.
Well, that's on an island off the south, something lies hidden, waiting for the chance to strike. A family is missing, and the lone survivor is so shocked he is unable to describe the terrible events. Now, psychologist Victoria Juno will uncover the truth by going back to the nightmare. But the last thing she ever expected was that the nightmare was real. So, to summarize, this kid and his family go to their vacation home on this island, and his parents and dog are eaten by Komodo dragons. And it traumatizes him, and his therapist says, we're going to go back to the island, and you're going to face your fears, because she doesn't believe that there's anything actually dangerous there. And,
poor Buster.
Yeah, poor Buster indeed. And it doesn't go so hot, because they get attacked by the Komodo dragons pretty quickly. There is an opening, so our opening scene shows some illegal animal trafficking. Mm-hmm. And the Komodo dragons end up on the island when one of the eggs, a bunch of Komodo dragon eggs are in the shipment of illegal animals, and one of them goes bad or hatches or something. Something looks wrong with it, and the guy...
They definitely look like
yeah?
raptor eggs from Jurassic Park.
Same effects, guys. So, yeah. And anyway, the guy driving the truck full of all the illegal animals just takes the crate of eggs and throws it off the side of the road and doesn't think anything of it. And then we get the little thing, 19 summers later. Well, you can probably figure out what happens. It's a fairly straightforward monster movie. There's not a whole lot of complication to it. Like, it tries to have a plot, with moderate success, I would say. Like, there's more going on than just giant lizards attacking people. I first saw this actually in undergrad, when I was getting my bachelor's in biology. I was looking for reptile horror movies, and I just kind of stumbled across this on the internet, and I saw it, and I really enjoyed it. I played it for a friend a few days later, and they actually left about 45 minutes in because they thought it was terrible, which I think was unfair, because I've watched much worse movies that they had shown me. So I saw this as an adult, and I enjoyed it, like, initially as an adult. So.
Well, did we want to go around to...
So, anyway, that was my first impression. Who wants to give their first impression?
I'll
go ahead. Go yet. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. This was definitely my first time seeing this one. I know I've heard it mentioned, probably mainly in the group. I think we've been mentioning. I think Dustin's probably been mentioning this one for a while, if I remember correctly. But
Probably.
it's one that again, it has some themes that I am very interested in. Actually, the idea, one, that the big bad really is works for an oil company, appropriate. Um, but the idea that the film focuses on something that people often don't think about, which is, uh, it may be a silly creature feature, but the setup, as Dustin mentioned, is an endangered species being released where they're not supposed to be. And that can lead to all sorts of sticky issues of, well, it's a pest there, but it's an endangered species, the Burmese python in the Everglades is an example I'm aware of with that one. Uh, so it's kind of interesting to look at that. The Otherwise, most of the characters were pretty interesting. I really, the psychiatrist is quite attractive. The two guys who are there working for the oil company are actually both pretty likable guys. The kid, though, this kid,
He was not the best.
he was not the best. And Simon Westaway plays the villain, and he was quite entertaining in that role. And also, I was just looking at something here, and you were talking about the pedigree, Dustin. This film is the one and only film directed by Michael Lantieri, but he is a 5-time Oscar nominee and a winner. He won for Jurassic Park, but he was nominated for Back to the Future Part 2, Hook, The Lost World Jurassic Park, and AI Artificial Intelligence. But he has his special effects resume, Westworld, let's see here, San Andreas, there's a lot of stuff you wouldn't think of as special effects, but Alice in Wonderland, Superman Returns, Minority Report, Hulk,
Jesus.
yeah, a lot of stuff, all the way back to Fright Night, Flashdance, Last Starfighter. I mean, it's pretty. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit, so that's a pretty impressive. So I found that kind of amusing that that's like the one film he gets to direct is, but you kind of like, well, maybe he should get another shot at it at some point,
We're gonna get to see him again then twice more this month with Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Hook.
Exactly, yeah. And yet, ironically, this film had nary a mustache to be seen. It was that was my biggest disappointment.
We needed a mustache from a Komodo.
But overall, it's an entertaining film, and yeah, I'm glad I got to see it. Although I do have to say, though, that whole thing of the movie couldn't decide where it was set, and I wasn't looking at the DVD case, so I didn't know Florida was part of the picture too. I'm just like, oh man.
I don't know why the DVD says Florida. It's so bizarre.
Because somebody got it wrong. Somebody fucked up.
But it took me out of the movie a little bit. Once I realized all the plates were in Georgia, I was like, I thought this was in North Carolina. What? And then the whole thing was filmed in Australia. So as a naturalist, I was looking at it, and I will say this. They did a passable job of making Australia look like the South. Not a great job, but a passable job.
I didn't realize it was the South. I never even paid attention. So
It looked good enough to me. Like I wouldn't have been able to tell, I don't think.
yeah, I couldn't tell it was the South, but I couldn't tell it wasn't the South. Like I said, I just never really paid attention. So
I've never been to Emerald Isle, but I have been to Ocracoke, which is very close by, and they would look very similar. And it definitely would not pass for Ocracoke or Emerald Isle to a native. But I think to someone who's only been there a couple times, yeah, close enough. But I do look for those kind of things. It's like, I know, Dustin, you probably understand this because you're a nature nerd too. Like, I do, when I watch films that are set in places I know, I like to see if I can believe that they're actually set there. You know what I mean?
I can
Yeah.
get that, yeah.
Like when things are supposed to be set in Boston or whatever, I look to see if I can see anything that I know in Boston or whatever. So yeah, I mean, so I do a little bit, but mostly just like Boston area or whatever.
All right. Well, I guess if you're finished with your first impression, I can go on to mine.
Go for it.
Of course, I had never heard of this movie other than I remember Dustin mentioning it in passing a while back. And then I was like, okay, well, I can get a hold of it. And I watched it, and I thought it was a decent enough creature feature. It's kind of weird. It kind of felt like a family-friendly film, but it was a little bit. But
Dark.
it also had stuff that was a bit dark for a family-friendly film, so it's kind of a weird mix. I'm still not quite sure where to place it. I'll have to watch it again to truly understand my impression of it, but I thought it was okay. There we go.
I guess I'll go next. I'd seen this film once, if not twice. I swear I saw it on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Sci-Fi Channel did play this a few times.
And I also picked up the film at one point in time. And I thought I remembered that, this, but this is a straight up, like, they mimicked the Jurassic Park movie, like, almost beat for beat. I would say they mixed Lost World with Jurassic Park. At least to me. Not that it's not a very enjoyable film. I do like the creatures, but the creatures sound exactly like the raptors to me.
Yes, the rappers.
I said the raptors.
The Raptors.
I agree. There is the one scene where you get the aerial shot of the grass field and you see the little areas that are beaten down. And that did remind me a little bit of what I always thought was the best shot in The Lost World, where they're stalking them in the cornfield. And yeah.
But the sounds that these creatures make are the exact purrs of the raptors and the exact noises that the raptors make. So, to me, that was my biggest thing that I saw throughout the film. It's not that it's not an enjoyable film, but a lot of things derived from the Jurassic Park movies. And I think that helped hurt the film for others. Although I enjoy the film, obviously you, Dustin, enjoy the film. You seem to overlook it.
I think most of us liked it. I'm pretty familiar with the raptor sounds, and I mean, maybe the growls were reused because same effects guys. But
actually, do Komodo dragons actually make sounds other than hissing?
I think they can hiss. I think they can hiss, but I don't think they can really make a whole lot of other noises.
Right.
Because lizards aren't very vocal.
Well, maybe I heard. I'll have to watch it again, but they were making the same guttural sounds as the raptors. I heard the raptors. So.
I will admit that I don't think David's entirely out on a limb here, because I was reminded of the raptors. I don't think it was the same sound, but I think it was very similar.
But other than that, I recognize the one dude. He was in a TV series called Revolution that I watched for a little bit. I know he's been on, Rory, and he's also been on Criminal Minds, a little bit as a serial killer, and he's played a doctor on this like animal apocalypse TV show that was based on something by somebody well known. I just forget who, but it was a pretty decent show. But you know, I think he played in a lot of movies over time. More necessarily as the bad guy. And I guess he was kind of sort of a bad guy and a good guy at the same instance in this movie.
I don't really consider him a bad guy at all in this one. I think he just had some bad circumstances where he ended up working for a bad guy, but as soon as it came to actually doing something bad, he wouldn't do it.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, because his boss was like, kill these guys. And he pretty much just said no on the spot.
yeah, and the boss is like trying to threaten him and everything, and he threatens him right back, and the boss is like, you don't have to worry about the Komodos, I'll kill you and worse, and he'll make you wish you were the Komodos killing you, and all. He's just like really going after him.
Right.
I really wanted to see him get eaten by the Komodos.
It's kind of implied by the end of the movie that, well, we're not there yet, but it's kind of implied that he's been abandoned on the island and that they're going to get him.
Yeah, it's implied. I just wanted to see it.
Right. We don't get quite the same satisfaction that we do in the other. But
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But
now, my first impression is the first time I ever watched it, first time I ever heard of it. So definitely came in completely blind, didn't know anything about it. Except I do like Komodo dragons, so that was something I was interested in. And as far as the creature feature, I'd have to say it's a better movie than Alligator 2. Alligator 2 definitely had a lot more comical scenes and lines than this. This was more of a serious movie. So in that aspect, it's a better creature feature movie. And I liked it better for that. I do wish there was a little more actual seeing the deaths more and a little more gory, but like I said, I like that sort of thing. So as soon as I saw the dog Buster, I said that's Komodo food right there. So I knew the dog was gonna get it. Shame they didn't show it, but
such a shame.
Yeah, I really. Yeah, I don't like dogs, especially little dogs, because they're so yippy and annoying that you just want to punt them.
Anything that you can drop kick over a back fence is not considered a dog.
I can hear everybody tuning out right now. Oh my god!
I'm not a fan of dogs either, whether they're big or small. But yeah, so let's just say that way. Yeah, I know all the dog lovers out there, which is like everybody almost, are going, "What are they talking about?"
I had actually read a description, so I knew what was going to happen to the dog. But I did have a similar reaction with Grease. Like when he decided he was going back to help them, I was like, "Oh, damn it, he's going to die."
Right,
like, yeah.
And that kid, I kept saying, "What a stupid kid! What a stupid kid!" Like that kid seemed stupid throughout the whole thing, except for like we'll get to it later. There was one scene where he actually looked a little badass, but we'll get to that later.
Well, obviously his parents were like some sort of safarian parents who let him roam wild. Obviously he knew like the map of the land, so his parents trusted him to like go like wherever on the island. But they probably definitely didn't expect like to run into this monster that would literally destroy them.
I think that's a safe bet.
But that part when Buster came in through the puppy door, you kind of like expected something to happen.
Even
to
the
him.
kid knew because the kid's like, Buster, come here, and then it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, that
he
was
smashes
nice.
through and you know it got him. So
That
the
was
kid
really a
knew that-
great scene, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
it could have been better if you actually saw it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, they don't want to show you it. Wow, we really are. We really wanted to see some dog eating, didn't we?
There's some gore lovers here who
Lizardy
like
dog.
to see that.
Anyway,
It's a lizardy dog world.
whose impression was next?
I think that was it. I think that was the last one.
Okay, somebody
Oh,
else
did you
wanna...
go?
I went, yeah.
Okay.
There is kind of one more thing. This does have one kill that actually really like disturbed me the first time I saw it, and you guys can probably guess which one it was.
Are you talking about the one where he roped the darn thing and like hung it up?
Human kill.
Yeah, I think I heard you mention it earlier, but the one I'm guessing she's the aunt, if I understood correctly.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the lady
That was-
gets
that
the lady
was-
gets
that was a
pulled
decent
into the
kill.
floor like that. That like
Yeah.
that made me feel gross.
Yeah.
That made me a little happy. See a little bit.
Well, everyone's got their own kick.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I like gore movies.
166.
I like gore, but Mo likes gore more than me. So
It was a pretty bloody death, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So,
But anyway, who wants to start us off with the plot? Since a little worn out from Alligator.
well, I think you already started. You mentioned the prelude scene, I believe. So yeah, then we skip ahead to where the family is going to the island. The kids chatting with Martin Grease, the boat captain, yeah, the ferry captain. And then they go. The kid explores with his dog, and his parents go looking for him, and they get back to the house. Dog gets eaten. Parents get attacked off screen, but we know what happened. And then we see him a couple of years later at, I guess, his grandmother's house, traumatized.
I would say his aunt's house because that's not his grandmother, is it?
Well, the old lady, I think, was his grandmother, wasn't she? The old lady?
I assumed that
don't
she
know.
was the mother's sister because she's not really an old lady.
There is an old lady there. There's the old lady, then there's the other lady and the psychiatrist.
That
There-
scene happens
Lady.
pretty fast, so
Yeah, it did
I got
go.
kind of lost there. Like they kind of give you the information you need, and that is it.
Yeah, but I gotta say, this family must be money. I mean, they've got like that weekend home on Emerald Isle, and this whoever's house it was like a mansion. Like I thought at first that it was a mental hospital. I didn't realize that the family connection right away. And then I was like, oh wait, I guess that was the old lady's house. But yeah, they have this psychiatrist who comes in who believes fully that he has PTSD, and the best way to combat PTSD is to go right back to the source of the trauma and relive it. And
Well, yeah,
of course,
because evident.
I had a feeling that Brandon would have something to say on that.
Well, I don't recommend it. I mean, yeah, if you've got a phobia, and I understand the concept of wanting closure, but there's got to be a reason why he didn't want to go there. And no.
Well, her reason was the fact that if we don't, they're going to send you to a psych ward anyway. So we might as well face your fears.
You probably would be.
And obviously, with whatever psychosis that she's used to, she's done it before and had success. So,
yeah, she does make a point later on of saying that I've helped lots of kids, but this is the first time I've actually made things worse.
Right, and she
Yeah.
definitely takes it on her, but
Again, she doesn't. She works half cocked at it. Whenever you're exposing somebody to something that they've had a fear of, you've got to really understand the case very well. So I would, and she didn't even have a bond with this kid. It's just like, hey, I got this treatment. Let's go.
Well, yeah, she didn't even
right,
wait for him to have a bond. She was like, "Yep, we're going on this trip. You're coming
yeah,
with, no matter what." And then once we get there, there the aunt or whatever is like, "No, don't just let him. You're just gonna let him go into the house? It's not up to me." And then the kid just like runs off.
Unlike the wind.
right, yeah,
But in any case, they get to the house, and I guess everything is covered on the inside of the place. But the aunt walks a couple feet forward, and I guess she falls through the floor just a little bit.
The floor kind of gives way a little bit, and there's a little hole which will come into play later. So there's a bit of foreshadowing there too when she falls in that hole.
Yep.
right.
But
Because a hole is never just a hole.
I guess it's a little bit later when they're at the beach, and the kid is basically telling her, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into," and he's like, it's like he's kind of questioning why she believes him or whatnot, and why she's there, and she kind of reassures him later, like before bed, but then of course that's when noises are heard outside. The aunt goes outside.
You're here to die, Timmy.
right. And then
Admittedly, killing him would resolve the PTSD. He would not have it anymore after that point.
that is true. That is true.
The kid wasn't even all that worried about it, though. You know,
he was just going through the motions.
I know.
And Brandon, I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I have definitely seen portrayals of PTSD before. As we pointed out before, I think we're both very much in agreement that Delroy Lindo was kind of robbed from his portrayal of it last year in Defy Bloods. There are certain things that one expects to see in a PTSD portrayal. And I felt like the kid seemed shell-shocked, like he was a little bit detached, but it did not jibe with what I think of as PTSD.
No, you would expect at least some cringing moments where the kid is like having visions, and all of a sudden he cringes and almost like shakes,
noises,
shakes on the ground like he's in some kind of epileptic shock.
I don't know about convulsions, Dave. That seems like a lot.
That might be
in all fairness, PTSD has a number of symptoms that are associated with it. Flashbacks are associated, of course, watching them back, but there's also dissociation. So one could say that he was, he was dissociated, feelings of numbness, lack of ability to express emotion. These things can fall in the line of PTSD.
Lack of ability to socialize?
So, it can be. It really depends on how bad a shock to the system. Though I do feel like there's more to it than what was on, and I feel like they should have established this doctor as having been in treatment with him a lot longer, have gotten to know him, and then maybe look into it. But
I feel like the kid. I feel like the kid's role was phoned in.
Well, yeah, that too.
A little, yeah.
And then I think somewhere along, I think by this point we have gotten something about the Bracken, the oil exec, and his people on the island, Oates and Denby, and Oates is the one who's basically been blackmailed to be there. Like I think, well, didn't he say he and his wife were geologists or something along those lines?
wife
Or
was a
Yeah, his wife
His
is a
wife-
geologist.
and she went missing, and he was on the island, and he was blamed for her murder or
Which I
her
don't get. Like,
disappearance.
how she was not found, so how do they know she was murdered?
Well, her
Missing.
disappearance. They figure he knew something at
Well,
least.
right, but they were going to court for it, and
True.
so like, there's no evidence that she was killed, just that she was missing. So
Yeah,
that was
but-
kind of a plot, like a
Well,
I
if
think
you
a
think
plot hole.
Well, if you think about it, the law
Oh.
enforcement of the island has license plates from 2 states away. So maybe they're not exactly the best at at detective work.
Yeah. Well, I never noticed that, but I definitely noticed the fact that he was going to trial for his
Right.
wife's murder, and
Right.
he had said he never saw his wife again. So
Right.
I'm assuming they never found a body or anything.
And of
because
course-
the Komodo was ate her.
Right.
So there was no body to find. So I mean, he could be questioned. I definitely. But as far as being arrested and tried for her murder,
Mhm.
no. It was just a little bit of a plot hole there.
And see
That's what it
the
makes
oil exec Bracken uses that as
Yes.
he basically swoops, and we learn all this later from him when he's talking to the shrink. But Bracken swooped in and provided a way out for him. Basically, he was disappeared, not like killed or anything, but like basically he works for Bracken in exchange for being off the grid, basically. And they never do mention, but it makes you wonder why Denby's there, because he seems a decent fellow. And you get the impression that Bracken probably collects people like this. He probably is more than happy to bring people on board that can't talk back, because he pretty much owns them. So it makes you wonder what
Yeah.
Denby's story was. But yeah. Anyway, but they're basically there to kill the Komodo dragons, because
They're basically there to take care of the problem that
Exactly.
started because of someone else to begin with.
Right.
Obviously, that person who ended up like throwing those eggs down the hill on that island was someone who was trying to get rid of evidence of his.
No, I think it was just he smelled a rotten egg and thought the whole batch was bad, which seemed like it looked to me like he was a dealer of rare and exotic animals.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like, why would you throw out all the eggs just because one is bad? I don't know, but that was the impression I got, that he did it for that reason. But yeah, because Lord knows he still had plenty of evidence in that vehicle. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, Bracken does make the good point of what would people think if an oil executive was killing an endangered species. I'm like, well, they wouldn't like it.
Well, they treat it like every other oil exec that kills off endangered species.
Right, but he would be accused of doing it on purpose. That's a little different. So he gets these other people to do it, expendable people to do it.
Yeah.
I still strongly feel like the noises of these darn things are the noises of the raptors. I'm sorry. But anyways, going forward with these creatures, I love the creature design of these things.
They look great. They're a little plump for Komodo dragons,
Right.
but they look great.
Well,
Probably-
they look on
Oh, they're
Taurus,
well
so-
fed.
They look like They look like an extension of like the giant Gila monster, in a sense.
Well, they look more like, monitor lizards, which is what they're supposed to look like.
Mhm.
But a little more drooly in the mouth, I think, than you would expect.
I really like the way they looked. Like I said, I like Komodo dragons, and
Yeah.
and they definitely looked
Please?
fierce. So they didn't look over the top or anything or crazy.
I
and,
thought-
they were really well done.
I thought the
they-
fact that they were
Mhm.
able to make them drool it was pretty unique.
And the drool
Right.
itself is like a chemical, like a
Yeah.
poison itself.
Biological
You
bomb.
get that, so that was pretty cool. added
Actually,
into it.
Which is
It's
not
recent-
entirely true.
it's recently been discovered that Komodo dragons are venomous. In
Right.
that saliva, there is venom. They do have venom glands.
It's kind of like, from what I understand, it's kind of like the recent discoveries of, like, with garter snakes and whatever, where it's not considered a fully like, it's not a venom in the sense that a Gila monster venom would be, but it's got venom elements. Does that sound about right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
it
it's
seems about
kinda-
right. Like it's
Yeah.
like in the saliva. Like it doesn't have like a
Yeah.
delivery method other than it doesn't have like fangs or like a delivery method, but
Right,
it chews its saliva into you.
right.
Mhm.
And
Well,
the
I mean,
whole
saliva has a lot of
effect-
bacteria, so
Right. Well, and the whole infection thing is any creature like that with long, pointy teeth can potentially infect you. Like I myself have treated snake bites that were non-venomous, where it will itch like holy hell until you put alcohol on it, and then once you do, you're like, oh, I'm good. Yeah.
I felt bad for the boat captain though.
Oh, yeah, he
because
was cool.
He seemed
Oh,
like
I did
he
feel
was a
bad for
cool
him.
guy.
But again, it looked like he was there. I hate to say this. I hate to, but it's such a horror movie trope. It was like he was like, the token guy that
Wow.
you knew
that's a fair
you
point.
knew he was going to get it. And
The
it's
tokened man of color.
exactly. And as soon as he said, "I'm going to go help him," I was like, "Oh man, dude."
it's all around, all over again.
And he was wasted. Like, he didn't even get to do anything after that. We just show him infected and
Yeah, well,
dying.
at least
That's
we
like,
should have seen him like shoot one of those things. Like
Right.
the other guy who's got a
Right.
kill
Given him a
off
hero
before he
moment,
died,
yeah.
it was kind of like the big complaint I always had about The Shining, where Scatman Crothers comes in and gets axed immediately. It's like, that wasn't supposed to happen to that character. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
the
Yeah.
same
the
sort
book
of thing.
actually had him live, so that
Exactly.
I actually felt that happened about 3/4 of the way into the film.
But then again,
Right.
Kubrick did the film also as a fuck you to Stephen King.
Yep.
Many people, what was it that documentary where it's all the conspiracy theorists talking about it?
The fact that the red car was the car that was in Stephen King's novel, and yet he used a yellow car.
And that they passed a disabled one that was the color in
Right.
the Shining, so that he could
And
show
that was
you that. I own you.
I destroyed your novelization of the film. This is mine.
Destroy you. Yes.
And and then of course it would be cool to see Stephen King go as a Kubrick.
Now, of course, plot-wise, Martin getting pretty much effed up by the lizards does introduce, in a way we had not seen before, how friggin' cold-blooded Bracken is. Like, Oates calls him, like, we need medical help now. And he's like, nope, you don't.
Nope.
He's like, no,
You're gonna die.
if he dies, good. I don't care. It don't
That's one
matter
less
to me.
person I have to worry about.
Exactly.
Knowing
one,
truth.
one less witness. That's the thing. One less
Yeah.
witness.
And then of course then we get the moments of Patrick going all Mimi Siku on their butts.
Going what?
Mimi Siku, of the kid that
From
was in
Jungle
Jungle
to
to
Jungle?
Jungle. Yep.
I was thinking more Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies, but
He did kind of go Lord of the Flies.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he looked like he had his shirt off and he had like a little war paint, and he just killed that Komodo. I was like, that was pretty badass right there. And the kid was kind of like annoying. It just part of but that part was actually really cool. I was like,
Of course,
that's talking about.
before that, he kind of disappears for a while. We kind of.
Yeah.
We kind of zoom in on Victoria Oates and Denby for a bit there.
Yeah, but then you see him grabbing the thick rope from somewhere.
Oh, I did see that. I thought he was gonna try to do to the Komodo what he tried to do to the little reptile in the beginning, like try to rope it and hold on to it or something.
Lasso it.
And luckily he didn't try to do that because that wouldn't have worked too well. So he got some water at least.
And
I don't know. Him going Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings. Going all Lord of the Flies, and then lassoing and riding a dragon. I don't know. That would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting, but I think he would have lassoed it, and the Komodo would have ate him. So
probably.
The thing is I can't help but thinking of that scene in Jurassic Park where they're just climbing down from the rafters and they jump onto the Jurassic Park skeleton, and the raptor jumps on top of it, and the skeleton just all falls on Ellie. Well, that same exact moment happens here when suddenly she falls down and that whole entire ceiling falls down, and it's like that skeleton was coming on top of that psychologist there, except it was the pipes or whatever that had fallen from the ceiling. But to me, it felt exactly like that Jurassic Park moment. So it just felt too coincidental. Other than that, when the thing fell around her and you saw just her face underneath all that stuff, I kept picturing Ellie underneath the skeleton. I'm sorry, that's how I felt. So
okay, I guess I see it.
But in any case, that's still roping of the monster. That was pretty effective.
Very effective, and then he just stabs it too. Like that wasn't it. It wasn't just roping it, catching it. It was like he's stabbing the fucking thing.
And then of course,
family.
Right.
And of course, because the whole reation why the ceiling started to fall is because the damn thing started to move again.
Yeah, it wasn't dead. He thought he had killed it. Actually, it was pretty cool that she was hanging on to what she thought was a dead Komodo. And then all of a sudden she realized the thing's alive. She's like, "Oh, this isn't happening."
All these monsters swarming and so on. It reminded me of another one that we covered. I think it was your one of your picks for Meet the Cast, Dustin. I can't remember what it was. It was one about these evolving creatures.
Aberration.
Yeah, that's what this kind of reminded me of in a sense.
Yeah, it does kind of remind me of some of that, but I feel like these are two. This is definitely a separate film and a separate entity from
right.
Aberration enough, the level of creature
of that in Jurassic Park.
It is interesting. It is interesting that these, even though they're based on more of a public perception of Komodo dragons, it is based on a creature that's not necessarily enhanced by chemicals or whatever, which is a little different from Aberration and the alligator movies. So that's kind of it actually does bring more into mind of Anaconda in that sense.
Correct.
Which is kind of
It's
interesting.
not necessarily formed by toxic waste. You know,
Right.
I
There.
kind
So,
of think of this as sort of a sequel to the movie The Freshman, where they walk out with the Komodo dragon at the end after saving it from being eaten.
Okay, yeah.
that was a awkward film.
Yeah, I guess so.
But,
Freshman was a great film. It includes somebody in film school, somebody saving an endangered species, and Marlon Brando. You can't go wrong.
but then we get Rory facing a one of those Komodo dragons, and it looks like he's almost going to get venomed, but he ends up grabbing some kind of a spike and somewhat stabbing it into one of those dragon's eyes, and then it literally like chases him down, and he gets on the other side, and I guess his buddy gave him his cigar and told him to smoke it. Well, I guess he found a reason to smoke it.
well, Denby unfortunately bit it before this happened, and there actually was that sort of there was that running plot of he gave Denby a cigar at the beginning, and he kept wanting to smoke it, and kept kind of, and then finally, I think, right before the end, he gave it back to Oates, and was like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because when they crashed and he got out of the vehicle, he was like, "Well, the most important thing didn't get broken."
Right.
So just like the cigarettes in Alligator 2.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
I mean, they did have that scene where he said at the end of Alligator 2, like, you deserve a cigarette. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And then he's like, nah, no more. And just tosses it.
I wonder if this followed the Independence Day trend with the cigar, the not until the fat lady sings, moment.
Yeah, I think that predates Independence Day, but yeah.
But anyways, he lights the cigar and throws it into what I guess is like a pool of gasoline.
Right.
Which I'm not exactly sure how the fuck he knew that it was filled with gasoline, unless he did it himself.
Right. They also did a little bit of trickery there, because it looked to me like he was standing right there in the pool. But then he shows up later,
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Because his boss ends up coming in that copter, and they go inside like they're supposedly going to like talk to him or some shit, and he goes and commandeers the helicopter. Like, how the hell does he know how to like drive the thing to begin with?
He learned at the same school he learned the same school Michael Myers learned to drive.
Right.
So every actor knows how to drive a helicopter.
Yeah.
Hey, I bet you if Michael Myers was behind a helicopter, he could pilot that bad boy perfectly.
Right.
Yeah, well, he'd only go about 2.5 knots.
Yeah, he was good at flying the helicopter. But I mean, who knows? They never, he was a scientist, so they never really went into it. Maybe he liked to fly on the side. He got his pilot license.
And besides, how hard is it really to take off in a helicopter? It's landing that you got to worry about.
Well, he looked pretty good at landing too. I mean, he landed just perfectly to save their asses, and get out of there. So yeah, he seemed like an expert. So maybe he had his pilot license, but maybe little plot hole that we missed. But
I know we'll eventually talk about it, but that flare inside that dragon, that effect.
Oh, that looked cool as fuck. That was definitely badass looking.
Excuse me.
I really enjoyed that. But I do agree with the character when he's talking to her and he said they're beautiful creatures.
Mhm.
I think so too. And she's just like, beautiful
So do
creatures.
I.
Like, what are you, crazy because they're trying to eat us? But I mean, yeah, they are trying to eat, but that doesn't mean they're not beautiful creatures. But they're just
Yeah, they're just
they don't
trying to
mix well with
survive.
humans, right? I mean, they're not. It's not their fault. I mean, they're not really the evil. They're not the bad guys. You're on their land basically because they were there first for 19 years. And they were just abandoned there. So it's really not their fault at all. They should have been
No, it's
captured and relocated. But
right.
instead the bad guys want to just keep it hush hush and destroy them.
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot of them. It's a really there were a lot
Right.
of those things on that island.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
There might have been
Did you notice we kept seeing baby ones too?
So
right.
as
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw a couple.
Well,
with our reptile experts, what are y'all's opinion on the ability of, we'll just say South Florida to keep the tropical vibe, a Komodo dragon egg resulting in that number of Komodo dragons thriving, basically, because they'd have to thrive to keep in those numbers.
well,
I
Yeah.
think they'd be
On that
eaten
island.
pretty quickly by bigger creatures, because baby Komodo dragons, they live in trees. Like they're actually pretty good climbers, and they're very vulnerable until they start to get big. So
Well-
with all the alligators and pythons, I mean, they could become established, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they
I
did
don't know
find
if it's
something
actually
to eat
warm enough, but
until the oil company came and started
Florida's
destroying all
a
their food.
gamble.
well, if we're going with Florida, then that's probably true. If we're going with Carolina, there would
Carolina
be
gets too cold.
probably.
They
Probably
survive
there,
the
yeah.
winter. Not-
I think there's a very good chance that this is kind of the biggest stretch of the thing, and that from what I understand, Komodos tend to grow in fairly dry climates too, and the coast of the southeast would have dry spells, but
Yeah, Florida's very hot and sweaty and humid.
right. But one thing, as far as the ability to reproduce, and I don't know, Dustin, if you've read this, but I read something in doing research for this film. I was curious, so I looked it up, and they said that apparently they found that Komodo dragons can show a limited form of was it parthenogenesis or whatever, where the females can spontaneously give birth to a batch of eggs that tend to be all male.
That tends to
And-
happen with monitor lizards, yeah.
Right, that they basically, a female by herself can
Varanids.
produce a clutch of males, and then essentially be able to, which I guess that would just be like you said, because so many infant mortality is so high with reptiles. Maybe that's why by the time they reach adulthood, there might be like 3 left, I guess. that would make sense that there would be all males. Because then they could essentially breed, And I know that has helped some invasive lizards like brown anoles, I know, have at least a limited form of parthenogenesis as well. And they've become downright they're really bad pests in Florida, from what I hear. So we see them here in Virginia too, but I think they're not considered established. But I'm convinced that they just go inside for the winter.
I go inside. They turn on the heater.
No. They greenhouses and garden centers. They go into the greenhouses during the winter. But yeah.
So I guess the end of this pretty much has them like walking into town, sitting down, and Rory putting his shades on, and the sheriff pulls up, and he's like, "Are you guys okay?"
Right.
And he's cured.
Yeah. That's right.
Not further traumatized.
No, not at all.
because he's like, we're better than okay.
I think we're gonna be just fine. We did kind of. Did we miss like all of the action stuff though? Like with the like when he steals the helicopter and shooting the flare into the Komodo
I
dragon.
think
and,
we did mention that, but kind
there's
of
there's a lot of running from the
piecemeal.
dragons in this.
Right. And we did kind of mention that he steals the copter and leaves Bracken and his posse to fend for themselves, which was
And
nice.
we kind of
Yeah.
glazed over the part where Patrick went missing, and she went like running in the cornfields, and there was this like one Komodo dragon that was like watching her as she came by.
Right.
But I enjoyed that these things. You could definitely see them like hunting as packs.
They
You
do
know?
hunt in, they do hunt in groups like that.
When three of them came into a pathway and then you saw them come towards the screen, that was pretty effective. It's like it's like you could tell that they were following them.
They can smell like the when they do like envenomate something and that infection does set in, like they can smell that from a pretty far away. So that part was accurate.
And I was saying to myself, why is she shouting? Like, don't you guys like don't want these things to come near?
I don't like anybody keeps common sense in these types of movies.
Common sense is if there's a monster like on the loose, you don't try to make any noise, even if you're trying to look for someone. I don't know. I always I wish that I would see at least a little common sense sometimes. Not all the time, because sometimes when there's zero common sense, that just means it's just going to be a fun movie. But
I have to agree that I thought particularly that Victoria, I did think, yes, she was surprisingly lacking in common sense for someone who is supposed to be educated. I mean, if she's supposed to be a psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever the case may be, you'd think she would have more common sense. And I agree that she sometimes seemed lacking in that.
But on that note, are we ready for these special effects?
I think so. The special effects in this were pretty great. Like I was really
Yeah.
happy with them. There were some CGI in there with the animatronics, and the CGI lizards weren't as good as the animatronic lizards. Like you could tell what was and wasn't. Like it wasn't seamless.
Like
But for the most part, they've sold pretty well.
I think when you saw the CGI'd ones, they were like from a distance. You know, like if you were watching them from a distance, to like coming out from the corn fields and like starting to walk towards you, that's when the CGI ones were. And especially when those ones came sauntering towards us. That was CGI. But when the vehicles came up past them, that's when you could tell that they were the animatronics.
There is one scene we didn't mention when the kid and the psychologist was in the car and the three Komodos were there, and the kid's just like, we're gonna die here. Like he wasn't even upset or scared. He was just like, matter of fact, we're gonna die here. And she's just like, no, we're not, you know. And he's just like, yeah, we're gonna die here, you know. But I guess that was part of the PTSD.
Yeah, I would say overall, and again, our director definitely has a special effects background, so I would definitely say that was generally one of the high points of the film. they could definitely have paid more attention to certain aspects of the production, but I think that the overall look was pretty solid. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think they got the creature down pat. I think they should have
Totally.
been a little bit creative on the noises. That's all I'm going to say. Anything more on that? But it's
In keeping
it's what it was.
In keeping with our theme for this month, they really should have given Denby a really big mustache, but they didn't. But
Right.
oh well.
Well, what the psychologist? That would have been cool too. She could have had a big old mustache.
That would have been something different.
All right. What did we want to mention? Music? Because I do think that there was kind of a score.
In the beginning, they were playing a song that I started singing along to when they were in the truck, and I really enjoyed that song.
Well, yeah, Sultans of Swing is a classic.
Yeah, it's a great song. So I enjoyed that. I don't remember too much other music besides that. I remember that and I remember thinking, oh, the music is good in this one already.
I think I remembered a score in the beginning.
I think Sultans of Swing was the only, found music in the film. There is a score by John Debney. Honestly, I kind of was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if they blew half the budget on that song. They might have. I don't know.
Like all the music budget went to that one song.
So the composer has an interesting assortment of credits here. The Greatest Showman, yeah. And then
I haven't seen that yet.
The Passion of the Christ.
The SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water.
Nice.
That's a classic there. Hatfields and McCoys. That's pretty cool.
Well, and I guess he is the musician, the musician behind the new Clifford the Big Red Dog movie. So.
Oh, that's so okay. Yeah. And then Sin City. Okay, that's
he's the composer behind the Mighty Ducks Game Changers series.
Bruce Almighty, the hot chick. We all know that's a classic, right? And Cats and Dogs.
Yeah.
It's like a mixture of really high and really low. Inspector Gadget, the same year this came out. We got Inspector Gadget, Dick, The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland, End of Days, Lost and Found.
Elmo and Grouchland.
Hey, he did some of the music behind Madden NFL 19.
Right. Anyway, good times. But yeah, I seem to remember the score being decent, but I don't really remember it. Like, it didn't really lodge itself in my brain all that well.
Yeah. Favorite scenes are we at now?
I believe so. It's kind of hard for me to pick a favorite. Well, I have a least favorite scene. When the dragon pulls the ant like into the floor, like that really grossed me out. Actually, the first time I saw it,
could probably agree with that.
It still makes me uneasy each time I see it. But as for favorite scenes, I think I like when they're just being stalked through the grass by the dragons, because that feels like the most realistic part of the movie to me.
Okay.
I think that is how they hunt, basically, isn't it? Like they wound something and then they follow it around until it's sufficiently weakened.
Yeah. Eventually, just gets it falls prey to it.
Yep.
Apparently, from what I was reading, that's the old view. But there's sometimes they go in more for the kill right away, but also they will take advantage of a wound like that. I know vipers are famous for doing it that way, and that's why they have the heat pits in the first place. They'll wound something and then track it using the heat. But I'm trying to think of a favorite scene. I don't know that there's really a standout for me. I kind of agree with what we were saying earlier. I like seeing Bracken go into the building and the helicopter take off, and then there's a Komodo dragon nearby. And I like that. And normally I would say I love the fact that they didn't feel the need to go in for the kill, except that I really wanted to see him get it, just like with Vinny. So it's kind of like simultaneously a great scene and one that annoyed me. So I don't know.
Yeah, it just annoyed me.
What about you, Brandon? What would be a favorite scene for you?
I'm not really sure. I've been trying to think of one that'll stick out for me.
I can go if you want to think on more.
Yeah, give me a little bit more time to think on it.
Well, my favorite scene is actually when he goes over Lord of the Flies, not Lord of the Rings, on the Komodo and captures it up in the rope and then stabs it with the spears, and that was just an awesome scene. I do have a couple runner-ups and the dog scene, even though you don't.
That was good. That was
don't
good.
quite see the dog getting killed, but he did. So that was a great
see
scene.
the creature bust through the door,
And the other one is the gun. I like that scene. I really like that scene. I know you guys think it's the worst, but I really like that scene.
I like the flare gun thing when they did
that was good.
I'll
the flare
put
was
that
definitely
on there.
another runner-up.
That was a fun effect.
No, that was definitely.
Yeah.
But
that was right up there with
kid
that flare gun
capturing
effect and
Komodo, I'd have to say
Return to
it's
Splatter Farm.
definitely a standout moment. Whether you thought it was best or not, it was definitely a standout for me.
Yeah, I think you guys touched on my favorite scenes. Definitely the bust through the door and where's Buster moment,
I didn't say where Buster. Like I knew where Buster was. Buster was in his belly.
Yeah.
I love when they're talking about what happened to the dog, and they're like, "Oh, I think he ran away." I'm like, "Nah, he's in the Komodo dragon's stomach.
Right.
He ain't running no more."
And then that moment where he basically strings the thing up and stabs it, and I'm gonna go with my original Mimisiku thing. I haven't seen Lord of the Flies, so I can't really say. No, I haven't.
I've never seen it either, but I read the book.
But I do own it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like.
I don't own it, but I've seen it, so there.
I'm sorry. I've been making that was a slip of the tongue, but now I'm thinking about what it would mean if he went all Lord of the Rings. Like, would it be like Gandalf, where it's like, "You shall not pass," or would it be more like, "Precious"?
Precious.
I think either of those could be hilarious. Well, great.
I shall throw this into the water, but I do not know the way.
I would defeat the tricksy dragons.
Frodo and the Nine Fingers. Oh no, just kidding.
Okay.
That's from Return of the King, the animated version.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought that was from Lord of the G-String.
But in any case,
it sounded a little more pornographic than anime.
I think we are at our outros moment. So,
did Dustin do a favorite? Did you?
Yeah, I did. My favorite was the long grass hunt.
Okay.
Which is actually kind of my favorite scene in the Lost World Jurassic Park too. So
it's like I said, I love that shot.
Well, in any case, Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I run a YouTube channel called The Crypt of Horrors. I collect horror movie stuff from all over the place, and I show off what I find on that channel, The Crypt of Horrors. I also have a Instagram for showing off things that aren't quite video worthy. So that's also the Crypt of Horrors. And I'm on Twitter at DerCryptaxis, DER Cryptaxis, all one word. I want Cryptaxis just so it's easier, but some jerk has had that tied up for years. They haven't even tweeted yet, and it's like a 5-year-old account. They don't do anything. So go report Cryptaxis.
Their purpose is to keep you from the account.
Precisely.
Right.
How dare they?
Evil people.
Alrighty. Let's go over to you, Crow. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am disabled, so I don't do much except for watch movies and TV and play games and read books and, the fun stuff. I keep myself busy. I'm always doing multiple things at once. So I'm a multitasker. Like I was playing games while we were doing this podcast and talking to you fine folks as well. So that's a little bit for me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Going over to Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, my name is Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus World, and where we talk about all kinds of physical media, do our pickups and all kinds of fun stuff like that. We've got a fun little vlogcast planned for next week where we're going to come on and talk about some shows that if we were the people behind the scenes, they would be some of the stuff you get to watch. It'd be pretty cool. But then I'm also chose this month's anime selection, Mawaru Penguin Drum, which we'll be talking about at the end of the month. I'm still not sure that I'm going to be able to watch my copy as I had hoped for reasons, but I'll sure get it watched in time. Meanwhile, part of the reasons being that I am typically rather busy trying to start up a new business that is basically celebrating its first year this month. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
And,
Already a year?
Yeah, I know. Well, technically, we set the company up a year ago. Technically, we kind of started business about 9 months ago. But,
Got his first Komodo dragon eggs ready to hatch.
No, definitely not that. Although, yeah, and I mean that's one of the reasons why these ones tonight were fun for me because the company is all about environmental preservation. We are growing and selling native plants and trying very hard to educate people about the dangers of invasives and just generally the way people tend to look at nature as interchangeable and you can just do whatever you want. And no, it doesn't usually work that way. Usually you end up something more like the Burmese pythons, which are endangered in the wild, but they're a pest in Florida.
Ironically.
Although in Virginia, we have an example of a relatively benign one. There's a catfish called the yellowfin mad tom that is only known from the upper Roanoke River system of Virginia and North Carolina. And assholes who don't know better introduced it to the James. And now there's a bigger population in the James than there ever was in the Roanoke. But it's relatively benign. It has not really caused a problem. So it doesn't always turn into a disaster, but it could be, some things have. So, yeah. Anyway,
talk about your backwoods gene splicing. Anyways, going going over to Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right. Well, SeptumSin versus the world. We like physical media. We do pickup videos, the occasional review here and there. I seem to keep getting comments on that Skeleton Key 2 movie review, which I'm very plainly explain that it's a sequel to a movie that is not the one that people think it is, we've got to cover that on this channel. We are going to cover that on this channel to
And
like that.
specifically show the cover of the film.
But because I keep getting complaints like that first movie was so good, and how dare you hate on the sequel to that movie, even though I never knew there was a sequel to it. It's like there wasn't. But that's pretty much it. Jake has covered the upcoming vlogcast. It's going to be interesting. I'm editing it now, so and we've got another vlogcast coming up on Monday, which will be good too. So we've got some fun stuff that's in the pipeline.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, which is a podcast that has taken a hell of a journey through many different films, many different genres, and I think we've had a lot of fun covering films of all levels. So we're definitely going to have some fun next week, as I believe we are covering the film Hook, correct?
Yes, we're gonna continue our mustache matinee
Yay!
as we go into all things whimsical with Robin Williams and a whole bunch of fun cast members.
But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, which I go on about my own video pickups and my own video reviews from time to time. So please check that out, as well as Inside Movies Galore. And hopefully you give a like, share, and subscribe, and just enjoy yourself and go and watch these films. And then come back and tell us how bad or good the film was that we had just recently discussed. So y'all have a good evening, and just don't find yourselves on any random islands anytime soon.
Oh, I wanted to go to a random island.
And I keep walking to them, but I keep wondering how I get there.
Right. Hey, you actually, from where you are, you could walk to an island because you're very close to the rocks.